You know, getting into a new game that seems to just hit all the right buttons for you, it's a difficult feeling to describe. All I know is it feels good. Yo, what is going on, my fellow weebs? Connor here, and welcome back to the channel. So we're back today with some more Crystal of Atlan, and today I wanted to go over the gearing process for your characters in Crystal of Atlan. Now, it is still fairly early on. Unless you're playing pretty much every single day, you're not going to be at this point. So if you're a little further back, that's totally okay. We're going to talk about early game. We're going to talk about, I'm hesitant to say early, mid, and late game because it kind of blends very quickly, depending on how much you're playing. But we're going to talk about the entire process from start to finish and what you can do to make your journey a bit more smooth in Crystal of Atlan. If you enjoy this type of content, would appreciate a subscribe. We're working our way towards 10K, and I have seen a good surge of you guys jump on the channel and jump on board. So I really appreciate you guys clicking that button. A like helps the video, and a comment, well, I just kind of kick back at night and read these comments at the end of the day. So they just help me get to sleep. Either way, let's go ahead and get started with the video. So before we get started, I figured I'd give you guys a bit of a barometer of where I currently am. So we have completed day 4 of playing Crystal of Atlan. Here's my current gear that I have at the moment. I'm going to talk about a lot of things you can do while you're leveling. Just keep in mind, none of these things are required. It will make your situation easier. You will be able to do things earlier. You'll be able to do things more often. However, it is not a requirement at all to complete the content that you go through in the leveling process. You can physically get through with everything that they hand you. Every 10 levels after level 10, you get a box that gives you a weapon. It is a weapon of that level and it's +7. So you will have a weapon the entire time you go through this. You get gear to drop as you're going through, and we're going to talk about some of the ways that you can kind of fill out the slots you may not get lucky on when it comes to the gearing process as you're going through your leveling process in Crystal of Atlan. Now, this is also going to be kind of a soft leveling guide to an extent as well, because to talk about the gearing process, we have to talk about where you hit specific points at certain levels while you're going through. So we're going to first start out with day 1 of playing Crystal of Atlan. Now, if you're brand new to the game, you just started out with your first character. If you're doing as much as you possibly can on the first day, you're going to push through to roughly about level 30 to 32. Now, it's going to depend on whether or not you are a premium player. So if you buy the monthly pass thing that they have there, because the monthly pass does give you an extra 20 stamina, that will allow you to push your story all the way through to completing chapter 2, because you do chapter 1 and 2, and you'll be around, like I said, level 31. I believe it's capped level 32 is what you'll end up hitting if you're not just wasting your stamina afterwards after pushing past that, right? Because the story will be locked for 24 hours, and that's the time where you go back and you complete all of like your exploration zones and all your challenge stuff and things like that. Now, this gets mentioned all the time. People always ask like what to do after you run out of stamina, or can I push forward my story and level up more? Guys, do your exploration zones. I didn't, and I really recommend doing these because I actually kind of like, I missed out on a bunch of stuff. You get exploration points, which gives you bound gold. It gives you all of these like materials and things like that. These are all very, very useful as you're going through the leveling process, as well as even afterwards for leveling up and ranking your character up. So you're going to get a bunch of these stars as you do the exploration zone stuff. That means like, you know, running around, unlocking all the waypoints, finding chests, because chests are also going to give you gear as well to help fill out the slots. So you can get that taken care of really, really easily. If you ever see your friends like running around in pink gear the entire time they were leveling, they're probably doing their exploration zones. And I see you've completed all of those things. You've done everything else. What else can you do now that you've hit level 30? What should we work on? What should we go ahead and grab? Well, first things first, I'm going to take a look at what you have. So if we go to gear and we click on the craft button here, it's going to tell you about crafting in the first place. Now, if you're someone who only wants to do the bare minimum, you're like, I can get through everything. I don't need to worry about like, you know, trying to min-max my leveling process or anything along those lines. 100% totally valid. You do not need to do any of these things that I'm going to show you, but you can do these things if you want to get more power early on. Maybe make it easier for you to push forward, maybe do some solo content that you're trying to do, like speed something up or whatever it happens to be, right? It's totally up to you at the end of the day. But if you're someone who's trying to get a little bit more out of this, you can with very, 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 very minimal investment. Now, things like money are going to be useful in later game, but the early things that you're getting, like let's say, for example, the plus 10 or plus 12 tickets that you get while you're leveling up, those are locked to specific level gear. Now, while you can transfer those upgrades to gear afterwards, which I'll show in a little bit, you do want to make sure that you are getting the most out of those upgrades. So let's say, for example, I believe there's like a level 25 or level 20 ticket that you get while you're going through your leveling process, plus 12. You want to use that on the appropriate gear. You don't want to use it on something that's level 15, you want to use it on something that's level 25. Well, there's also new voyage questline stuff. There's one of these quests that requires you to craft something. Well, you can kind of kill two birds with one stone, so to speak, right? So you can go ahead and craft something, let's say that level 25 chest or whatever happens to be, And you can go ahead and then use that plus 12 on that 25 chest. You're probably thinking, well, I don't want to waste resources on crafting something that I might need later game. If you take a look at the actual item, you can see it requires 2 of this here and then 6 of these black rocks. Well, these black rocks are extraordinarily easy to come by. You can literally get them from a vendor. That you probably have quite a few of them that you just picked up as you've gone along in your adventures. You're like, oh, what about these magnetic ethers? These literally come from the quests you were doing during the story. You will already have them. But what if I need that for later on? Well, if we scroll on over, you can see as the tiers continue, the materials change and they don't connect. You can see there's a line that connects, right? This level 30 does connect to this 35 because it requires the base piece, right? So it's something you can upgrade if you happen to not get a good chest piece or whatever, and you happen to get these other resources. But these resources, they come from doing the missions you're already going to be doing. So don't hoard a bunch of resources that you don't need in late game. The major resources to hoard are going to be gold. And you can see that this is extraordinarily cheap. It's 2k gold. You're going to have that in spades. You're going to have tons of it. And I usually recommend at the end of the day, right? Like after you finished all the stuff that you're doing, that's when you go ahead and take a look at what you've got and then fill in those slots. Let's say you happen to get good gloves, but you didn't get good legs or good boots or whatever. You can fill in those slots with some crafted pieces and be completely fine, and you haven't wasted any resources. And that's something I'd recommend you do for the first 3 days playing. And that's pretty much going to be the entire process while you're going through your leveling process. You just take what you get for free. You're going to get tickets. You're going to get boxes. Open those boxes up. Use those tickets on the appropriate gear. Keep in mind, you do want to keep an eye on the tickets themselves. So we got these level 60 vouchers, right? You're going to get vouchers during your leveling process, and it's going to say enhance a piece of gear up to a specific level to plus 12 or whatever it happens to be. If I were to say get one of these tickets and it said gear up to level 25 plus 12, that means only gear that's level 25 and below I can use this ticket on. We're thinking like, well, why would you even bother leveling up something that's a lower level? Well, one, you can use it at that level. You're going to get it while you're around that level in the first place. And two, you can transfer those upgrades to the next piece of gear as you're going along. If you actually look at your gearing process, let's take a look at, let's go here. When you're going to upgrade something, you can actually click this little plus, and the gear that you have that's already upgraded, if it can be transferred over to, and usually it can be, as long as it's not, I believe it's as long as like the same tier of gear or lower, it can be transferred over to that piece of gear. Sometimes it is at a little bit lower of an upgrade level. For example, my helmet is plus 8. I believe I used a plus 12 helmet to transfer over to it, and it came out as plus 8. Whenever you get a new piece of gear and whenever you're upgrading, go ahead and take care of that. And then keep an eye out on these vouchers. The vouchers themselves are very, very useful if you're reading what they can be used on. What is worth investing as far as upgrading goes? You can pretty much get away with leveling up everything to plus 2. I did experiment with leveling things higher, like to plus 5 or plus 6 or 7. These are plus 4 because they transferred from previous pants. These are plus 10, they transferred from previous boots. This is plus 12 because I had a ticket for level 50. But realistically speaking, any of your slots that don't have the free upgrade ticket that you used on, you can plus 2 the item pretty comfortably and not really worry about anything. You can also just leave it as it is. In most situations, it doesn't actually increase your damage. It depends on the piece of gear, right? Like let's say, for example, it was a weapon that's at plus 0 for some reason. Increasing it to plus 2 is going to actually increase. So you can see it's P-Def Shred and M-Def Shred. This is the shred, this is the enhancement attributes. You can see what actually goes up when you enhance the item itself, right? So let's say this is damage reduction, damage reduction, damage reduction. This is HP and physique, base HP. Physical damage reduction. Like you can see, like these are things that get increased whenever you do the actual enhancement. So it's not like you absolutely have to. It's not always going to be a damage increase for you, but you can upgrade those items as you go along. But if you're doing the leveling process, I would highly recommend just upgrading to plus 2 and then leaving it alone. A lot of times you're going to get free upgrades anyway as you go along that process, so you're better off there. Now, let's say you've gone through this entire process, you're leveling, and you're starting to get to some of the higher end stuff. What else should we be looking at? Well, when you eventually unlock Void Realm, you're actually going to unlock doing this first Void Realm here. This is to make your accessories. You're going to complete that for the day. And once you complete that, you're going to create your accessories. You're probably thinking, should I create my accessories? Yes. You make your accessories as soon as you can make them. That's kind of one of the departures from the whole, like, you don't need to make everything, is you make these as soon as you can make them. As soon as you can make your Void accessories, go ahead and make them. So we go over here to necklace. You can see we have our Void necklace here. It requires a Void Year blueprint, and it requires a zeroing engravings. It's 6 of them total. I think you get like, I want to say it's 18 on your first day. So you can make all of your accessories. So you go ahead and make your necklace, your bracer, and your ring. The only way you don't make these immediately is if you happen to get lucky and you get a drop. Like, let's say, for example, I believe I got this to drop on one of my runs, like one of my first runs. And I just used this necklace until I was upgrading to this Void Shadow necklace piece, which technically I believe this actually ended up being a bit better, but it was one of the situations where the set bonus actually helped me out early on. So I went ahead and swapped over to the Void neck. But if you happen to get this to drop, like let's say, for example, you get an inverted moon necklace, or you get the bracers or anything along those lines, this is really strong. It's actually pretty powerful, and you can skip that slot for the moment. Eventually you are going to fill that slot because you're going to be going for the legendary void gear at a certain point. So just keep that in mind as far as that goes. But 45, we unlock Void Realm. So we make all of our accessories, right? So we make the accessories and we're good to go after we do Void Realm. What's next? Next day comes around, you're going to unlock this next Void Realm. You're going to unlock Ravine. Ravine specifically is for upgrading the accessories and making Void Armor. Void Armor is something you're going to make regardless because you need the nullification to be able to actually get into Valley eventually. This is going to happen around day 3 if you're kind of pushing forward consistently. So Ravine unlocks, you go in to do Ravine. Now, during the actual leveling process, you're going to go through the story. Always push your story forward. Always complete your story, no matter what the situation is. While you're leveling, push story first, as far as it will go. If something needs to be unlocked, it will be part of the story early on, and that's the most important thing, no matter what. But during the entire process, while you're leveling, while you're playing, always push your story forward first. Finish that, then look at something like your purple gear equipment slots, because there are moments where you're going to have you unlock gear slots. You're going to go through and you're going to unlock the slot here, the seal eventually, and you're going to want to complete that content as well, because that's going to require you to do stuff that is going to cost you stamina. So once you've gone through, you've completed your story, you've completed your gear slot upgrade for the day, right? We've completed that, so we know we have that taken care of. Now we can look at the gearing process and what we have left over, right? We're looking at Void Realm, Ravine. Go in and do Ravine. It's not difficult to do. You can like team up for it. You can quick match it. People are going through fairly easy. It's 2 bosses. It's not something you need to stress yourself out too much about. But get through Ravine, get it finished, and you're going to get these resources here, the hyper engravings. Part of the story is going to give you more hyper engravings. There's going to be a challenge that's going to give you more hyper engravings as well. You're going to need these hyper engravings. These hyper engravings are to upgrade your void accessories and to create your void armor. You want to make your void armor, that way you're able to hit a specific amount of nullification. You need 2k nullification to be able to go into the next void realm. If you don't have that amount of nullification, not only are you going to take consistent damage when you go into that void realm, you also aren't going to get any loot from it. So make sure you make enough of the void gear to be able to have the nullification you need to be able to get into the void realm. We've done our Ravine. We've gotten the resources. What should we do first with these resources? First things first, upgrade your accessories. You have a ring, you have bracers, and you have a necklace. Upgrade them all in the next tier. It's level 55 necklace. So get those taken care of. Super dope. Really easy, really straightforward. No, it says level 55, but you get this at level 50 because it has a -5 requirement. So then complete all of your challenges for the day. There are a bunch of challenges you can do. Like I mentioned earlier, after you run out of stamina, there's other things for you to do. Complete your Duel of Bonds. They're gonna have first time rewards. You're gonna have boxes in them, right? Level 50 armor. I believe there is, I think there's a level 50 armor in here as well. It's right here. Yep. Level 50 armor as well. So there's level 50 armor here. Go for a slot that is low. Like, let's say, for example, if you have like a blue chest piece, get a chest piece. If you have blue pants, get the pants. The reason I say pick this up here is there are 2 guaranteed level 50 gear that you can get. And I would wait until you get the other one first, because I believe it's like pink gear, before you decide which one you go after. Now, what about the other slots? This is where you're going to start making void armor. You're going to make that void armor so you get the nullification that you need. So if you go over here to our gear, you can see we made void armor for all the other slots that we have here. And that's basically what you're going to be doing. You're going to try to make the rest of your void armor and upgrade it. However, what about when we finish all that? What's next, right? What are we doing now? Well, now we're getting to the part that's pretty fun. We're going to get a chance to go ahead and spend our stamina. However, again, push forward your story. Make sure you've got all that completed. Eventually, it's going to have you go into Nullification Valley. Doing this once per day is going to get you a couple of things. You're going to get a resource that you use to upgrade your void armor. Of course, we have the epic shards. They're going to help you out. We've got these here, and then we've got the insignias that you can get as drops here. Now, keep this in mind. This is just going to be daily, but where you're really going to be spending everything at, and this is the first time you can do this, is on day 4. That's what we did today, but don't screw this up. Make sure you complete this first, because this is going to be more stats. But this is where you're going to start being able to burn all of your fuel, to burn as much of your resources, and run this as much as you possibly can. This is your repeatable content that you're going to be doing from this point forward to get your full set of gear. If we go to adventure, at the bottom here, we have this thing called Abyssal Purgatory. So Abyssal Purgatory, it is a pretty quick run. What you're going to be doing is you jump in, kill some enemies, kill a boss. Now, what you can get from this is your legendary gear, your level 55 gear. This is what you're going to be chasing after. This is what has the stats. This is what has your set bonuses. You can see here. If I look at the Claymore here, I get cooldown on Hell's Destruction. If I look at this armor set, I get, crit rate plus 40%, which is insane for Earthquake. It's going to change up how you use some of your gear. You have set bonuses here. You have individual pieces. So you can see this is like the gear you're actually going to be chasing after. This is why you have alts. That way you can do more of this to chase after the gear. Now you're going to get shards. These shards you can use eventually to craft the gear. If you don't get it, it's kind of like a pity system in a sense. But this is where you're going to be spending all of your resources. You get experience for doing this. You're going to be spamming this pretty much forever. I say forever, but it's as long as it takes for you to get your gear. This is part of the reason why they tell you to also have alts, is because you have more chances at getting a piece since you get a guaranteed piece once a day. However, it's not a guaranteed piece for your class. Yeah, this is for Berserker, but like if you go to all classes, this is actually the reward pool. As you can see, it's pretty huge. You have a lot of things you can get that have nothing to do with your class. If you were to get them, it kind of sucks, because that means that it's not gonna be useful for you. This is why people recommend different classes, because you're able to then take that piece of gear, and with a transfer stone, you can transfer it over to your other character. That way they get a bit of an upgrade, right? And that's it. Farm this consistently over and over again to get all of your gear. Eventually, you're going to unlock the raid content as well. That unlocks for us tomorrow. The raid content unlocks, requires specific notification to complete, has daily rewards, of course, and it's got insignias and more gear for you to be able to craft and get even stronger. So this is the raid content you'll be going after later. As you can see, if we go up to elite, it's up to 8-man, which is pretty awesome. You can see it requires notification to get into it. Works the same way we mentioned beforehand, but that's something you're going to be doing on a daily basis as well. And that's it. That's the entire gearing process from start to finish in Crystal of Atlan. You're going to be farming this out as much as possible the entire time through, and get as strong as you possibly can. Whether you farm up for one character, whether you farm for multiple characters, is totally up to you. Now, all of that said, there's one more thing to talk about. There is still one last thing to mention. You're probably like, the student of you probably paid attention to this. You're like, wait, is he not going to talk about it? No, I'm going to talk about it. Circuits. So, circuits, if you have ever played any of the recent gachas that are very popular, we're talking about HSR, talking about Wuthering Waves, we're talking about ZZZ, Genshin Impact, all of those games. It's basically the gearing system from that. Essentially, you have a piece of gear that actually goes into a slot, and that gear has a main attribute and sub attributes. The main attribute stays the same. The sub attributes are RNG. So you can see here, this was not rolled. These sub attributes will randomly roll at level 2, 4, 6, and 8. Here's the TLDR on this, because it's pretty straightforward. Don't roll anything until you actually get to the epic circuits. Everything else, just slot in a circuit and that's it. You don't really need to worry about rolling any of it. You're not concerned with any of the substats. Leveling them up is a waste of resources when it comes to gold early on. After you've gotten, all the gold ones here in the sockets, even if you have a couple of gold ones, you can level the gold ones. Basically what you're going to be doing is you're going to be leveling them to check the sub attributes. Like, oh, but what sub attributes do I want? Which ones do I care about? You want the ones that are offensive for your class specifically. Things like P crit for me, so that's physical crit rate, crit damage, attack speed. But oh, M attack. I don't care about M attack, that's magic attack. I don't do magic attack damage. You need to check and see what your class does and where they get their damage from, and then you want to pay attention to those offensive stats. Because there's so many freaking stats I can roll in here, you're not going specifically for like God roll. Basically just get as many of the offensive stats as you can after you get it to level 8. I'd recommend getting everything to level 8 first, checking all the stats, and then once you have a couple of decent pieces that have rolled pretty decently as well, then push them up to level 20 based on what the main stat is that you care the most about, right? So for example, this is giving me base HP because I play Berserker, and because Berserkers get a damage bonus based on the amount of HP they have lost, meaning that they need more HP to lose more HP. It is beneficial for me to have things like extra base HP or extra HP in general for my class. So I rolled things like base HP early on, for survivability, as well as for that little bit of extra damage bonus so I can get a hold of it. And then things like, the crit rate pieces, the attack pieces, those are base attack. Some of these are guaranteed, the specific slots, like this slot's always HP. This slot is always HP. These 4 slots are always attack. The helmet, the gloves, and the boots can either be crit rate, crit damage, or attack speed. Cooldown rate also. And then the talisman slot so far has been skill damage. I don't remember the other one, and then like elemental damage. So take that for what you will. It's different for every character and every class, so just keep an eye out. Maybe join a community that covers your class specifically, or wait for people to make guides on the individual classes and what stats you want to be paying attention to and looking for as you're going through and playing Crystal of Atlan. And now we have one more thing to talk about. See, almost. You thought you had me. You thought I was almost done. Last thing is insignias. As you can see, I have no insignias slotted in. Why is that the case? Well, insignias, if you've ever played a game like Final Fantasy XIV or played Phantasy Star, it's similar to that of an augment or of a materia. You essentially can slot in extra damage or extra stuff with these little insignias here. These insignias basically give you a bit of extra damage buff. And that's pretty much it. Insignias are very expensive because you can't just easily pull them out and put them back in. You can transfer insignias as you go along with. They require resources to do that. But as far as your gearing process is going to go, you're mostly going to ignore this until you hit endgame and look for insignias you actually want. When you finally get to the point where you have gear you're going to be keeping for a long period of time, let's say, for example, on your alts, all of your void gear, on your main, you start to get, things like your legendary gear. That's when you're going to be looking at things like insignias to slot into your gear because you're not going to be worried about losing those insignias. You probably can early on use like some throwaway insignias, but I never found it really all that important. And because the leveling process is so incredibly fast, you don't really need to worry about insignias in the slightest. So at the very least, stock them up. I toss in my storage personally. I imagine you can probably get away with using the blue ones if you really want to, and then save the higher tier ones. That way you're not wasting your insignias, but realistically speaking, they're not going to make or break your gameplay. And now we have actually gone through the entire gearing process in Crystal of Atlan. If you guys have any questions, or maybe there's something I missed, again, we're very, very early on. This is very new, so feel free to let me know in the comments below. I'll make sure to go ahead and either pin it, make a correction in the video description. Either way, like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to keep up with more. As always, thank you to the channel members. You guys are fantastic. I appreciate every single one of you, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, my friends. Peace out.